Hey guys, Aaron Wilson back at NRG Stadium. Texans had their normal Thursday practice and some good news on the injury front, at least some good news. So we'll start there. Will Anderson Jr. returned to practice. We expected that would happen. Very minor quadriceps injury. We've seen this pattern before where they rest/rehab him on a Wednesday. They have him back on the field on Thursday and Friday, and then he plays Sunday. And of course, Will has been lights out all season as a pass rusher, as an edge setter, penetrating presence, very disruptive. So that's a big deal for the Texans to have Will Anderson Jr., who's been NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, and in the future I think will be one of the highest paid edge rushers in football. So, I'm talking like Aiden Hutchinson, Myles Garrett kind of category. So we'll see. That's down the road. He'll be eligible after the season for that kind of thing. We can talk about it. Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be during next season? How will they carry that through? So also on the injury front, Nick Chubb back practicing. Looked good out there. So obviously his foot injury, minor. And there wasn't an update. They said that they would see how he does during the week. So it looks like he'll be good to go during the week. And so that's another development for the Texans to have, Chubb back out there. So it gives them more options. I know everybody was kind of hoping, no Chubb and they'll play Woody Marks. I don't know that they would have done that based on their track record. It could have been a combination of Woody Marks, Dameon Pierce, and Dare Ogunbowale. In fact, probably it would have been. But we won't know that because Chubb is going to play. Here's what else we know. And we get into kind of more of the bad news. And it's not as bad as yesterday, but it's still bad. You already knew that C.J. Stroud, with a concussion, was not going to play. And we've been saying that really since the game ended when he first got concussed on that big, scary hit against the Denver Broncos. Also, Titus Howard is not going to play. He didn't practice. They're not going to get him out of the concussion protocol in time. And then you've got Ka'imi Fairbairn, they've already ruled him out with quadriceps injury. So they're going to have Matthew Wright kick. But it's not only those guys in the concussion protocol. It's Jalen Pitre. And so they're preparing to play without Jalen Pitre. He won't play in the game. And they have a couple of contingency plans that I'll get into. But I just kind of want to start with the injury report. So no Titus Howard and no Ed Ingram. We thought Ed, because he'd finished the game and didn't practice on Wednesday, maybe he would be able to play. So we'll see if he practices on Friday. If he does that, then and if it doesn't feel bad, I could see him playing. Remember, he's missed one game this year with an abdomen, so it's not like he never misses a game. Harrison Bryant missed again with a shoulder, not looking too good for old Harrison Bryant. And they did cut Elijah Huzzie, as I reported. They waived him. He had been activated from the non-football injury list. He's a young corner from North Carolina and hurt his ACL in the East-West Shrine game, tore it, had surgery, made a great recovery, and actually has a good upside. They like Elijah Huzzie, but he's eligible if he clears waivers to join their practice squad, so we'll see if that in fact happens. We had a limited practice from Dameon Pierce. They said not injury-related, personal reasons. I did see Dameon this week. Seemed to be in good spirits. We chatted briefly. Didn't have enough room for his dogs, though. I don't think that's the personal reason that this is related to. And, of course, full participation, Braxton Berrios, Dylan Horton, Jakob Johnson, Dalton Schultz. Now, Jakob, he returned to practice last week. I think they may activate him. They have that open spot. They could use it for him. I expect elevations for Damon Arnett Jr. for special teams. And nickel, Myles Bryant. Hearing a lot about Myles Bryant might be next guy up at the nickel spot. But also that the Texans might utilize their base defense of 4-3. So 3 linebackers, Azeez Al-Shire, the captain and defensive signal caller, Henry To'oTo'o, who's played more than EJ Speed, and then Speed. So could see some 4-3 looks against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's not a big secret, but could also see some Myles Bryant. So I don't think they want to necessarily shift Kamari Lassiter away from outside corner to nickel. So do that. I forgot to mention Christian Harris, still sidelined with a shin injury. Haven't seen Christian since he got hurt. Doesn't seem like he's going to be available, so they'll go a different direction at that position. Of course, they could always use Jake Hansen. They use him heavily on special teams already. He's played 82% of the special team snaps this year, and he got a 1-year, $3 million maximum value extension. Congratulations to Jake Hansen for his new contract. Definitely well earned. So, we started with the nickel spot, and it would take multiple guys really to replace Jalen Pitre. All of his production, his ability to blitz, his ability to cover. He's got 3 interceptions. He's had a great season so far. So that's difficult, but not insurmountable. And I think they'll get him back next week. He had a headache at the end of the game, got dinged on the final play of the game, and wasn't feeling bad enough that he thought he was concussed. And then he came back to the facility the next day still having some symptoms, and they check him out, and they find out, hey, yeah, he's got a concussion. Never saw the Titus Howard hit that gave him his concussion. Just kind of snuck up on everybody, the way that Howard was concussed, injured, all of that. So now I want to shift gears. And I know this is a topic that's a painful topic, but we take on the tough situations head on here at Aaron Wilson's YouTube account, Aaron Wilson Sport. So I'm talking about myself in third person. I know, I just did that. It's kind of funny. So what about this red zone offense? And I've got it pulled up here. So it's the raw data, and it's bad. So the Texans are dead last, I repeat, 32nd in the league in red zone scoring percentage. 36.4% after last week's 0 for 3 in the loss to the Denver Broncos. So that means they have 8 red zone touchdowns out of 22 attempts. So they've had these prime scoring opportunities, and of course they're the only team that hasn't run for a touchdown from inside the 2-yard line. They cannot budge anybody. They can't get an inch. They can't get a mile. They can't get a yard. They can't do what they got to do to make these things happen. So it's quite frustrating, especially for the players and for Texans offense coordinator Nick Haley. And I'll say this. They've got to be more creative, obviously. There's only 2 ways to get it in. You run it in or you pass it in. They have a better chance of passing it in, I would say, than running it in. They don't have the offensive line to block the Zach Allens and the Dre Greenlaws. And because you're not getting that done, you're not blocking these guys, there's just, you can quarterback sneak it. That's one area. I am not an offense coordinator, nor do I ever pretend to be an offense coordinator. But I've covered football for a long time. I've watched a lot of red zone football. This is bad red zone football. It's rough. And Nick Haley, we had a conversation with him today, and he said it's not good enough, obviously. Every week they're trying to find the best thing to do, and they're inside the 1, and he says they didn't punch it in, which is very disappointing. They got to be able to get a yard, and they couldn't do it. He says we didn't execute, we hurt ourselves in penalties. Yes, there was the penalty for Ariante Ursary on 4th down where I think C.J. Stroud was scoring there on a sneak. So he says we got to be better starting with him, starting with the staff, starting with the players. We're all got to do better. A lot of things at stake. Trading the field goals for touchdowns cumulatively, definitely, it does add up. And 5 field goals by Kaimi Fairbairn last week. And if they'd even had just a couple of touchdowns, they win this game, and we would feel a lot differently about the Texans. They would be 500. They would be in the thick of the wild card race. We'd be patting them on the back all week. That's not what happened. They struggled. They couldn't get it done. And there was some question, I think some semantics about what does execute mean to Nick Haley. Obviously, like he said, it means to do your job, have technique, precision, great effort. And he says, what's not executing? Penalties, poor technique, mental errors, MEs they call them in the NFL. So all that falls into that category, not what you want. And ultimately, it's up to coaches to bring the best out of players, just like for teachers. So as they say to, this kind of a axiom of teaching, only go as fast as your slowest learner. So whoever the slowest learner is, you need to slow it down for them. They got to be able to teach, and they got to be able to have these guys not make mistakes. When mistakes add up, for me, is when you're overwhelmed in terms of a talent standpoint, and then you struggle to do your job because you're thinking about so many other things. It's tough. I do think that progress has been made with some players, including Ariante Ursary, who's gotten better about penalties, better about blocking. I think he'll do better against Josh Hines Allen than he did last time when he was dominated by just one of the most efficient pass rushers in football. He'll face him on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So you look at process, and as he said several times today, it's not good enough. We know that, but we don't know what the plan is. And he's not going to probably tell you. The plan is probably to try to scheme something. When I thought that Caley was onto something was in Baltimore with a little misdirection, crisscross thing, throwing it from Stroud to Knoll going the other way. And that looked good. Well-designed play, and I credited him and complimented him for what he did, and I thought he was on the right track. Other things in terms of, looking at the offense, and this is a question that's come up a lot. I've been asked, why aren't they playing Jalen Knoll? So I asked Dick Caley, why aren't you playing Jalen Knoll more? What's his involvement? As you guys know, 11 snaps on offense last game, 4 pass routes, and 0 targets. So no throws for a guy who has a 45-yard punt return. It was kind of implied, maybe reading between the lines from listening to Jalen, that he's going to block better, be more physical. I don't know. I don't think that's still invalid to me. Yes, you have to block, but it's not like he's an unwilling blocker or, just completely getting trucked out there. No, I think that he can block. Give him more chances. Don't just take him off the field because he's a rookie. And so Nick Caley's answer, they love Jalen Knoll. They planned for him. He's got a role. Feels like he's done a good job. And it's just that sometimes it does get a little lopsided, but it's not due to any lack of faith. So he just, kind of punted on that question. I get it. He doesn't want to get into it. He obviously doesn't want to criticize the player. So there's something there why they don't want to play him. And so he's not playing. Another question he was asked, what about the DNA of this offense? Who are they? What's your identity? The question's been asked a lot of times. He said they want to be a physical outfit that wants to run the ball downhill. And he says they didn't run the ball well enough. I agree with that too. And he says they've occasionally shown the ability to drive the football, but haven't nailed that well enough. And that's also disappointing. So he says it starts with him. He says we own that. So yeah, a lot of accountability, yes, from Nick Caley, but not a lot of solutions. Obviously, they're working on the solutions behind the scenes, and they are good on the early downs. They weren't good. Of course, they were 3 for 17 on third downs, and he says he feels like what's hurt and hindered them at times when he gets to longer yardage, not necessarily due to the run game, but swinging, missing on incompletions, getting backed up on early downs. You get into long yardage, tough way to live. So I get it. Yeah, they're not managing the third downs well, and that's why the drives are ending and why Tommy Townsend is punting so often. So it's a vicious cycle of offensive failure that leads to no points, a tired defense, and having 5 losses when you were a division champion last year. Okay, so now Caley, his plan with the football going to Davis Mills, the new QB1, at least for this week, and maybe even next week against the Tennessee Titans. What about the confidence level? What about the sync, and the chemistry, and the time, and the rapport, collaboration of Nick Caley, Davis Mills? So some heavy praise from Nick Caley about number 10, Davis Mills. Pro's pro, smart, every single day, right attitude, locked in, operation, into the game plan, studies football, a lot of faith in him, awesome to be around. And he thinks this is a great opportunity for him, has a lot of faith in him, called him sharp, mechanics are good, competitor, takes pride, great rapport, good communicator, good talent, throw the ball very well, played the game, played a lot of football. Says they're lucky to have him. Sounds like Davis, Money Mills, and Nick Caley, simpatico. These guys work well together. That's good. Maybe that will help. So Caley was also asked about his approach to calling the games, the strategy from where he started the year pretty rough, to now where he's had his more ups and downs, some moments where I'm like, okay, it's clicking on. The light's getting there. And remember, this is his first year calling these plays. He's been a good position coach, and he got elevated. And that's what happens in this business. You get elevated. and then you find out if you're ready. So he's just trying to find different ways to get them over the hump. Every week, lifting up the hood, trying to look and see what they can do differently. How can they help guys? And how are other teams approaching different situations? How do they call 2nd and 10? And all these different situations they work through. And, they have a lot of health issues. A guy that they're really impressed with, he's played with a lot of toughness and impressed me too. That's why I asked about him, was Dalton Schultz. Nick Kelly called a pro. He has a lot of respect for Schultz. I agree with that. Gives you everything he has. Works very hard, gets a lot of treatment. He's got knee and shoulder injuries he's playing through. Last week there was some doubt about him earlier in the week, and then he answered the call in a big way at a 47-yard catch. So one thing too that a lot of people wonder, and we've heard this from D'Amico, but what happened on the last final offensive possession? Why did they do that? Why didn't they run some clock? What are they trying to do? He says, again, repeating D'Amico, definitely channeling his inner D'Amico. They're trying to get a quick completion to get the drive started, then get into their 2-minute drill. Didn't execute it well, stalled out, not what you want. And, we're not able to get the offense where they wanted to get their cleats in the ground, be able to run the core plays, but ultimately it didn't work. And they get the football back with so much time, and the defense is tired. And then Bo Nix, they catch them with a kind of moving pocket, and the rest is history. His game-winning scramble that sets up the go-ahead field goal. So in terms of, what they're doing, and, we also had conversation with the locker with Aziz Al-Shire. He says it's not much of a rivalry to him other than it's a division game. Tim Settle Jr. didn't look at it that way, and then we had a good combo with Will Anderson Jr. Everybody knows, and I've been asking this question a lot about November football, and you're midway through the season, and you're starting to find yourself where you are, where you stand, and they don't like where they stand, and for the defense, they have a standard. His standard is 0 points. They haven't been able to do that. It's tough. They're the first-ranked scoring defense, though, and the first-ranked defense in terms of yards. They're an outstanding defense, but they're a lopsided football team. As we talked about before, they tried to do trades according to D'Amico Ryans. They were unsuccessful completely, and they were unable to get anything going in terms of a trade. So no moves for the Texans. A team that did make a move is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're going to compete against a new player with Brian Thomas Jr. And Texans, although they didn't make a move at the trade deadline, they'll face a team that did, and the Jaguars, against Jacoby Myers, wide receiver from the Las Vegas Raiders, traded for 4th and 6th round picks. Bit of an overpay, but a smart player that's good at catching the football, runs good routes, works them underneath, and I expect him to test out the Texans, try to get some ISOs, whether that's linebackers or Miles Bryant, who could be next guy up if they use a lot of nickel. I think it's going to be a lot of base, like I said. So they got to adjust to not having Jalen Pitre and trying to get some other players. They definitely stress they're going to need multiple people. And as they said, this guy is awesome. Again, Matt Burke, and took him as a person, playing safety, playing nickel, playing inside the box, playing against the run, and just a very fun player for them to coach. So no Jalen Smith, who was helping the team as a third corner. He's got a knee injury. I'm told it's not the ACL, but it is season ending. So Jalen Smith out for the season, placed on injured reserve this week. So that's unfortunate. What happened on the scramble against Bo Nix? So they moved the pocket, and he was pretty good in terms of awareness and seeing the space opening up, and he ran well. So he got out, he broke contain, and they didn't have a really good plan for rallying and letting him get to the ball. So they were excited, as I mentioned in the beginning, about having Will Anderson Jr. back. He's just having a great season. And Matt Burke called him the engine and heart of the team and the defense. So it's very uplifting to have him out there. With Trevor Lawrence, gets the football out quickly, sees open space, and so they've got to be, as he said, sticky and be able to contain him. So that's tough. And, he says, they're a little down on themselves at 3-5. He says they haven't played good enough. They haven't been great, and they didn't get the ball back. They didn't get a stop, so he's disappointed. He says they're fighting and working back to get to a better position. There have not been that many sacks. He says we don't chase sacks. There are a lot of pressures, especially from Will Anderson Jr. has 6 sacks, but Danielle Hunter, not quite as much production as I thought he would have, but they kind of come in bunches, right? Sacks, and they're going to close out these close games. They've also got to cover guys. Derek Stingley Jr. beat by Cortland Sutton, and Henry To'oTo'o beat by Broncos running back R.J. Harvey out of the backfield. And he says you can't stop your feet, you got to be able to run and climb the pocket. That's what Nix did, and he got it done. And then, special teams front, of course, Frank Ross talked about getting Matthew Wright ready for this game. That's a big deal. But I think Matt will kick fine, just not going to have the distance that you have with Kaimi Fairburn. So that's where the Texans stand. We'll have a Friday practice. We'll see, does Ed Ingram, do any of the concussed guys somehow get out there? Not expecting that. Maybe Ingram. Maybe we'll see if Ingram can get out there. Last time he did that, he was really limited, and they wound up not playing him. So for any of you asked or wonder, yes, right side. Blake Fisher for Titus Howard. Juice Scruggs steps in for a injured, Ed Ingram, not concussed. He's dealing with a knee injury that he suffered this past game. So that's where the Texans are. And yeah, guys, thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing. We're at over 19,250 subscribers now, so gaining about 100 and change already this week. So looking forward to continue to grow and get to 20K. Starting to get some interest from potential sponsors, so having some good conversations with folks like that. That always helps to the memberships, super chats, all those good things. So guys, please support the channel and allow me to keep this thing vibrant for you. That's what I want, and that's what you want. So we can do it together. I'm on Twitter and X, Aaron Wilson _NFL, Instagram, Aaron Wilson 7128, television at KPRC2, and of course you can read me at www.clicktohouston.com. The Texans bought a volleyball team. I went to that press conference. Good stuff. Hannah McNair, Cal McNair, supporting women's sports. They're going to have those games at the Barry Center. And yeah, it was a cool little press conference earlier. They had a nice lunch, so thanks to the Texans. Enjoyed that. And yeah, we'll see. I did play a little volleyball just for fun at camp, school, things like that. Yeah, good game, but not great. Spikes, a little better at digs, setting, serving, stuff like that back in the day. But anyway, Texans, that doesn't take away from their football preparations. Obviously, timing could always be better. Just like the timing could have been better on that tweet that was ill-advised, the timing 10 minutes before the trade deadline when they're not making a trade. You're posting Carl Lewis and some bunch of influencers, some sweet, and some bunch of people that people don't recognize. So it wouldn't matter if they did recognize them. People don't want to see that when they're mad about no trade. So just messaging, but it's not like they're consulting Nick Caserio on the social media posts and things like that. In fact, I know they don't. So yeah, just a little thought there. But anyway, not a big deal. Optics, right? PR. Just how things look. And it's not necessarily everyone's particular's fault, but yeah, decisions get made. Just probably poor timing. Just like the offense, poor timing. They got to work on that too and get better in all areas, right? Social media and on the football field. So we'll see. Can the Texans, can they win this football game? Maybe they can. But no, they're definitely, without Stroud, they're underdogs. So it's going to be tough. See how they handle everything. We'll get more into matchups. We're going to talk more about the Jaguars, and we'll talk more about the Texans and their personnel. But that is the latest as far as the personnel and some conversations that we're having with the coordinators, the guys that call the plays for the Texans. Until next time, guys, look forward to our next conversation. Thank you.